Hi everyone! I'm so glad I was able to at least make a video since we weren't able to come together. But I did want to introduce you all to your students' Advanced Algebra 2 class, hopefully clarify a couple questions you might have, and just see what your students are going to be working on throughout this year with me. And speaking of me, my name is Miss Sote. Your students also might refer to me as Miss S. And I just wanted to give you a quick background about who I am. So I am the daughter of two teachers, actually. My mom taught elementary school, my dad taught middle school, and I closed the loop with high school. I got my math degree from Cal Poly SLO, where I was very fortunate to be able to concentrate in teaching and actually completed a multi-year study on group work. So you'll see a theme throughout this video that I really like to emphasize group work. I think it's really important for students to be able to learn how to communicate in society. I also got a minor in environmental studies. I am personally very passionate about the environment, so your students might also experience some problems throughout the year exploring different topics related to the environment and also topics that they have suggested in their Google survey that they filled out. I was asking, where did you want to see math in this class? They gave me a bunch of cool ideas, and I will definitely try to use as many as possible. So I finished up my degree at Cal Poly after 4 years, and then I decided to leave San Luis Obispo and go to Cal State Monterey Bay in order to get my teaching credential. A wonderful program. I was able to become a student teacher in Salinas for an entire year. I worked at a high school there in their math classroom, and it was awesome. I got to know those students as well. And I was super fortunate once I got my credential to get hired at Half Moon Bay High School. So although last year was a very weird first year to be at the high school, I still absolutely loved it. Hence why I'm back for a second year. And then just a fun little addition. That is a picture of my family. We did recently get a new addition with my brother's child, so my first nephew. But that's just a little bit about me. Okay. I did want to go over a quick class overview just so you can understand what your students are going to be learning throughout the year. So one of the big things we're going to focus on is factoring. Algebra 2 is obsessed with quadratics, and those are equations that look like ax squared plus bx plus c. So factoring pops up a ton. I know some of your students may or may not have gotten to it as much as they wanted to last year. So we're definitely going to kind of backtrack and make sure they're on top of it for this year. Once we're really understanding factoring, and once we finish chapter 1, which is an overview of all the topics, then we'll start diving deep into specific families of functions. So many of you might be familiar with lines, just straight lines, nothing super special. We'll talk about those in our class for a little bit. I bolded quadratics because, like I said, Algebra 2 loves quadratics. And then we'll also discuss these other ones as well. So cubics, exponentials, rationals, radicals, and absolute value. I find that a bunch of these graphs have a lot of real-world applications, so I'm going to try and show your students as many of those as possible. Within these types of functions, we're also going to learn how to move a graph left, right, up, and down, and make it fatter or skinnier by just looking at an equation. So that's what transforming parent functions is all about. Rational expressions are really good for your students who might kind of like puzzles and who might have loved fractions growing up. So we're going to relearn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions, but we're just going to use slightly more elevated fractions. So a rational expression might look like x plus 2 over 2x squared minus 3. It's just a fraction, but obviously a little bit more complicated than what your student might have seen in elementary and middle school. Then we'll also move to inequalities and working with function inequalities. So inequalities are just less than, greater than, less than or equal to. Greater than or equal to, we'll explore what happens when you use those types of symbols with a function instead of the normal equal sign. The last two topics kind of tie in together. So logarithmic functions are actually the inverse of exponentials. So we're just going to talk about this last function and how it relates to exponentials. And fingers crossed, we even get a little bit further and hopefully get to explore imaginary numbers. It's already kind of come up in our class. Some of your students were asking about the square root of a negative number. And I was like, all right, we will definitely get to that later, but we're not going to talk about imaginary numbers quite yet. I did just want to make a quick note that this is an advanced class, so it definitely moves faster than my other class, my regular Algebra 2 class. So if you do find that your student is falling behind, please encourage them to reach out to me. I can definitely help them out. I can find them tutors. I can work with them at advisory or lunch. We can get them back on track. Alrighty. I have linked the syllabus here, but I really just wanted to highlight these key points. So hopefully your student has asked you about a TI-83 or a TI-84 already. I encourage them to get new ones if they wanted. I really encourage getting used ones because they can definitely be a lot cheaper. So if your student has asked you about some of the used websites I recommended, I promise I asked for them to ask their parents to go on websites like OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace. Those were just some areas where I found luck finding used calculators. It's definitely a cheaper option. If any amount of money is too much for you to spend on a calculator, I completely understand. Please just encourage your student to contact me if they are not able to find a calculator or they are not able to afford one. I want to work with everyone to make sure everyone has a calculator ready to go. Google Classroom and School Loop have finally both started working, so I did sync both of them. So anything on Google Classroom will be on School Loop, so your students can look at whichever site they are more comfortable with. I will only be inputting grades into School Loop, so if you want to be checking grades, School Loop is the place to go. I'm going to try and keep a tight schedule on grading, update grades weekly so that you can see how your student is doing and your student can see how they are progressing as well. I know with COVID, we're dealing with a lot of chaos at home and at school, so I have decided to be pretty lenient on my late work policy. I'm totally fine with students turning in work a little late, as long as it does not become a huge habit. And then once I post solutions, which is going to happen a week after I assign the assignment, then I will accept half credit still. So if your student is 1 or 2 days late, that's totally fine. Just encourage them to reach out to me and ask for an extension. As we can see, that word group has popped up again. So I really wanted students to learn how to work well together. We do group activities every single day. And so I thought it was only fair that we do group quizzes. I do want to still hold these students accountable to the content, so we will have them every other week. But I wanted quizzes to be a little bit less high stakes than our tests, which will be at the end of each chapter, and those will be the individual assessment. So up until the test, every opportunity a student has to work with another student has been provided so that they can see how their classmates are describing things. They can ask me for questions, and I just want to make sure that they succeed. Alrighty. This is what a typical day in our class will look like. So as I take attendance, I always ask a little warm-up question. It's usually related to something just to get the students talking to each other, form those group bonds. Today was what is the most dangerous activity you have ever done? And that question was asked because it tied into our math news. So a math news is usually a short 2-minute video showing students where math is in the world. So today we were exploring the math of skating on super thin ice, which seems kind of dangerous, but they got to kind of see the math behind that and write a little bit about that. Then we almost always do class notes just to make sure we're all getting the same information to prepare us for our quizzes and homework and tests. And I really like to make sure that if half or more of the class is team activities, so students working together, getting the chance to ask me questions, allowing me to see how everyone is doing, and just really practicing anything we've written from our notes. And we always end with a quick little exit ticket just so I can check how your student is doing. So that's what a pretty typical day looks like in my class. Google Classroom is where I'm going to be posting a lot of things, but again, it is all hooked up to School Loop, so don't worry if you don't enjoy Google Classroom, you can still see everything in School Loop. So every single day, I will be posting homework and class materials. So if your student is late, they can definitely just click on the day they were absent or late, and they can see the PowerPoint from the class we did. I have a blank copy of the notes if they want to print them. I have a completely filled in copy of the notes so that they can copy the blank copy and fill it in with the information. And then I always link the activities for the day. So all of these links are just for what we did in class so that they can get caught up if they were absent, or even if they were in class and just want to review materials, that is an option for them. And then I assign homework twice a week. I don't assign homework on Mondays, but when there is homework, it is always the first link for the day. So students can click on it, complete it on their own piece of paper, and turn it into class. I'm not collecting homework on Google Classroom. I did make that clear to your students, so just so you know. But this is what a typical post on Google Classroom and School Loop would look like. Alrighty. If you want to be added as a parent on Google Classroom and you haven't already, please just reach out to me and I can definitely get you added. Alrighty, and that's just a little bit of information about our class and me as your student's teacher. If you have further questions, please let me know. This is my email. It's sotej@cabrillo.k12.ca.us. I hope to hear from you all throughout the year. I feel like it's always awesome when I get to know the parents a little better. And I hope you have just an absolutely wonderful day. Have a great evening. Goodbye.